I asked Mark Davis, Program Chair, to bring us some local CEOs during the year, and today is certainly one of those. I'm also in awe of some of our CEOs in terms of what they handle, the broad range of products, services, divisions, etc. And again, today is typical of that. I'm pleased today to welcome to the podium Colleen Brown, who was elected CEO of Fisher Communications back in 2005. She's also on their board of directors. And she is responsible for all aspects of Fisher Communications, including the operation of Fisher's 20 television stations, 8 radio stations, Fisher Interactive Network, which includes, new word for you, 125 hyper-local sites. She also is on the board of Port Blakely Companies, Washington Roundtable, and both the University of Washington and Seattle University Schools of Business, as well as United Way. Please welcome Colleen Brown.
Well, I have to say it's great to be back. I was once a member of Rotary here, and I have really enjoyed just the short amount of time today seeing a lot of friends and familiar faces. So thank you for not holding it against me that I'm not now a current member of Rotary. Thank you, Jim, for that nice introduction. And I just wanted to say I have thanks that I want to pass out to, he's going to hate this, but my assistant is here today. Many of you on a daily basis might deal with my office, and Adam Weiler sitting over there cowering. He does not want me to mention him. But Adam, just wave, you know? Yes, he hates it. But Adam has been truly just a godsend to me in this office and has made my life so much easier, and he acts as our basically head of staff at Fisher. So it's been great to work with him, as well as I wanted to mention Brian, the movie guy. Thank you for coming. Don't hold it against me if I start making jokes about all the good things that we do at Fisher, or at least you know, make them better when you go back to Fisher. Okay. I wanted to comment on 3 things today. I took polls and asked the various people I was running into, what do you think folks want to hear about Fisher these days? What do they want to know about? And it came down to 3 things. The first was, so like, what is this turnaround and how did that work that Fisher has had? The second is, tell us about the proxy fight. And the third is, okay, what's the future of television? Of course, you know, that latter, if I had that figured out, I'd be making millions and millions of bucks. The fourth, and on a more serious note, is many people want to know about Kathy Gertson. And those of you who have been following Kathy's illness know that last week she had a very serious surgery, another one, for a brain tumor. Kathy is our main anchor at Como here in Seattle, and is a long, long time resident of this city, and somebody, I have to tell you, I've worked all over the country. As a journalist, somebody I have come to love and adore and have tremendous respect for, and she is fighting a tough, tough battle. So I wanted to pass on to you that Rick, her husband, and Kathy, as she is in ICU, and I don't know where she is today, but as of yesterday, she was still in ICU, want to express their thanks for all of you for your support and kindness through this terrific battle that she and her family are going through. So on that note, I also wanted to thank the community here, including Rotary. I've been here 6 years, and I truly have never been as welcome in a community as I have been in Seattle. You all have made me feel like I didn't miss a minute when I showed up here, and Mari, you'll experience that as you grow in your job. Everybody is willing to step in and help and talk to you and embrace you and encourage you, and I appreciate that for the Seattle community. And it's something that is unique, I think, in the world of communities, to be so willing to work with newcomers. I'm going to talk about the Fisher turnaround first, try to keep it brief because it feels like it was ages ago. I'm going to talk about the proxy contest, which is a little still fresh in my mind, so you'll have to bear with me if I have a tone on occasion. And then I'm going to close up with the future of TV and try to leave as much time for questions as possible. So on Fisher's turnaround, just so you know, 6 years ago I was working for the competition, or almost 7 years ago now. And the reality, I was working for Below down in Dallas. I had a long history in television, have run companies and done different things, and always in television. And basically was recruited to come up here to work for Fisher. And through that recruitment process, they said, and oh, by the way, Fisher hasn't made money in 5 years. We want you to fix that. And one of the things that you end up doing in your business when you have a passion for what you do is you know the good players. You know the companies that are out there that you admire. And Fisher had always been one of those. They may have had some hard times, but as somebody in the industry, I looked at Fisher as a great place to, steal people, to get ideas. I watched what they did because they innovated. They were a company that I respected in the industry. And so the challenge was more personal than it really was, by the way, can you fix it? It was like, wait a second here, there's something not quite right. This is a great company, and they deserve to succeed. What isn't working? So one of the unique things about the turnaround story is not that I came in with all the answers, because I really didn't have any. What I did come in and do was I tried very hard to walk in the door without a plan, a strategic plan as to how we're going to fix it, but with an idea and a very clear idea of what the process would be and how we'd go about doing it. And so for the first 100 days, my goal was to listen to as many people as possible, to get their input all around, both the community, this group, as well as all the employees within the company around the Western United States, and get feedback for what should be done. And through that process, I promised the board that I'd have a strategic plan in front of them within the next, not the immediate, but the next board meeting, which would be about a 4-month span. And so the pressure was on. But one of the things that we were able to do was set up a really interesting process that I'd never done before. But I sat down with over 100 Fisher team members and asked the same 5 questions. And I'm often asked, oh, what were the 5 questions? Well, they're kind of dull. But they helped me get at what really made Fisher tick and the obvious solutions, and maybe even some of the longer-term solutions. So I'll share with you those questions, and then I'm going to move off of the turnaround, other than to tell you what quickly we have accomplished since we implemented the strategic plan. The first question I ask is, and imagine this, I'm sitting down with an individual. It could be Brian, it could be Adam, it could be anyone, and I ask, what's working here? Tell me what works. Why is this working? What's working? And that's really an icebreaker. That's an easy one. That's the soft lob over the fence. The second one is, what's top on your list that you want to change? That's a little harder. They're getting in more dicey territory when they don't know you that well. But you get some interesting points. Sometimes people will not give you an answer. They're not comfortable doing it. And other times you get some good stuff. What do you most hope that I'm going to do? And it's the thing that's really, they just got to let me know, whatever that is. The fourth thing is, and this is probably one of my favorite questions, is what are you afraid I'm going to do? That really tells you a lot. And it also tells you what's sacred to the employees and the team members so that you really don't step in it, because you can make some mistakes early on. And the last question I ask, and this is more for my own edification, is who do you most admire in the company and why? And I can tell you, this was probably the most helpful question at my knowing what we should do to structure the leadership team, to structure the organizational management of the company. And when they didn't get into anybody that they worked with, you kind of, you got to come back and say, well, what about your boss? Oh, I forgot him. Or, oh, yeah, okay. So it really gave me a good idea of what I was dealing with. I did it with the same question with 100 people. Why that's critical is so that I wasn't showing favoritism or through time evolving my questions in such a way it defined it the way I wanted to hear the answer. I asked the same question over and over. I've tried to keep that up. I have to tell you, in the last 18 months, I have not had those kind of conversations. I did for year after year with 40 people in the company and different people, and I try to get at those answers so that they perfect and redirect our planning and our decision making. Then what I'd like to share with you is through that process, I'm so proud of the team, and I can't express that enough. Everybody rallied. When I got to Fisher, it was such a great group of people who were just ready to do the right thing. And it wasn't a matter of my bringing in the right people, or it was just a matter of my letting them have their lead and letting them follow it, and they did it. And I'm very proud of them. So today, their ratings across the company are number 1 or number 2 in news, number 1 or number 2 in ratings overall, sign on to sign off. Their revenue has continued to grow every single year. Even during political, we continue to grow every single year with our core audience, our core clients. And that's a measure of success and efficiency. I can go on to talk about all the other things that they've implemented, including the hyperlocal, which I'm happy to define and answer questions on later, as well as the stem to stern, about to be launched. Seattle will be the first market in the country, soft launch of a mobile television product where you can just watch on your iPhone in your car. I know that's scary, but it's true. Or on the iPad while you're on the bus. You can watch TV live. And not, with broadcast, not streaming. So you won't have any buffering. You won't use your data plan to do this. It's just a function on your phone. And people go, why would I want to do that? And it's like, well, remember when we didn't know why we wanted GPS on our phone and couldn't imagine what importance that would have? It's going to be in that same category. That's my theory. You will expect it years from now, a few years from now. Of course you watch live television wherever you are. You wouldn't give it a second thought whether or not you do it on your phone or whether or not you do it on your iPad or however you watch it. So that's one big change that's coming, and Fisher has led the way on that product. It's been an incredible international experience of bringing experts from around the country who build these different pieces and products to put an actual consumer product together. And we debuted it at CES, and the soft launch is more than likely in April. We're shooting for that, but it might be May. Anyway, it's exciting and going to be fun, and we've had a lot of great conversations with folks here in this community who want to be a part of that, and will underwrite some of that launch. So lots of new stuff going on, including the Plaza did sell. For those of you who didn't know, Fisher Plaza is a state-of-the-art telecommunications center and was not often considered part of our core at Fisher. And it wasn't that we didn't want to sell it. It was just the market fell apart on us when we went about doing it in 2008 and held it until it was time to sell it. And we were very pleased with the outcome of that sale. And along those same lines, we were able to take out some nasty covenants that prohibited me from doing about anything any of the agitating shareholders wanted us to do. And when you'd point that out, that was just a fact that they didn't want to recognize. So on that note, I'm going to talk proxy contest. Those of you who don't know, Fisher underwent a proxy contest last year in the 2011 proxy season. There were only 9 proxy contests that made it all the way through to the vote in the United States. So as you can imagine, this was a Herculean effort to fight a proxy contest all the way through. And the outcome, or the purpose of the proxy contest was for a hedge fund who sits on our board, which is unique, sits on our board, launched this proxy contest. And his company was called Front 4, and his former employer was Pirate Capital, and their logo was hand over the booty. So needless to say, I don't think there's much more difficult than getting in a fight with your board or getting in a fight with one individual on your board, or getting in a fight with your shareholders, because other than family, I think we were talking about that earlier, family being a very tough thing to get in a fight with, but it is very unproductive. It is, unfairly personal, for those of you who don't know. Some nasty things were certainly said about me, but I kept reminding my board, who's worried about me, I've got 6 brothers, I'm used to this. But it's very distracting, and it's very costly. So I would not recommend you have a proxy fight if you can avoid it. I do want to tell you that the typical approach in a proxy fight, unfortunately, schools such as the University of Washington, I saw Joe here earlier, dean of the Albert School, is teaching kids this. So, and I was, a student in the MBA program in another state where they teach you these things. So when it came about not just being book learning, but actual, I'm now doing this, it was interesting because it didn't throw me off too much. We'd studied this. When you have a proxy fight, they do three things. Well, they do a few other things, but they first take on management and say, I had to write this down. What did they say about me? Oh yeah, management's incompetent. Then they say, oh, okay, that didn't work. Your board's entrenched, which wasn't the case. Or you have subpar results. And then you get into fight letters, and then you're airing all your dirty laundry. And the point I wanted to make is our operating results were not subpar, actually. When you had Glass Lewis and the advisory agencies, ISS, actually do the work and put out their thick book on your report card, we were at the top of the class. We actually outperformed our peers. So that made me feel good about the team. And then secondarily, I can't speak to the management incompetence thing. I have to let that go. But the board actually had turned over almost exclusively in the last 4 years. We only had one member who had been on longer than 5 years. That's not an entrenched board. So none of the 3 points that are typical, proxy contests, they want you to do something, came about in our case. It simply was a case of an individual representing a hedge fund who wanted to take control of the company. It's that simple. He failed in taking control of the company, and we have not released our earnings this year. We'll be releasing our earnings soon, so I can't comment on that, SEC rules. But what I can tell you is that through all of those 5 years that we were measuring our success, our success continues, and we look forward with the industry to see growth, and the company has never been healthier. So we made it through. Thank you. So we have no debt and lots of cash right now. It's a bad thing. Okay, moving on. The future of television. Obviously, there's so much going on in television, I can't even begin to touch all the moving parts of television. But what I'm going to attempt to do is give you my idea of the few trends that I think are coming about and you might find interesting. So, first of all, we all know this. We're consumers of media. As consumers of media, what has evolved, and we saw this 10 years ago in the research, so it's not a big surprise. What is interesting is to watch it actually happen. Everybody wants more accessible, more discoverable, and the ability to share whatever media that they're using. I find that funny because I remember 10 years ago going, share? Really? We all know what, is on TV. Well, obviously now we know media has taken on a broader definition and share has taken on a much, much greater propensity through social media. Technology is fueling this through new devices and distribution models, which I think is very exciting. And all of us want it accessible without a different device. We all want it on one device. Because I don't know about you, but I leave my cell phone about everywhere. It's like I'm always calling a restaurant trying to find my phone. So, imagine if I had 2 devices. I'd get nothing done. The importance of consumption is mind-boggling. If you take a look, and all of the media research backs this up, the average, this is an amazing number, daily intake of media among consumers is 660 minutes. That's 11 hours a day. It's like, I'm questioning this, saying that can't be true. Then you review the TV numbers, it's 8 hours a day. It seems phenomenal, but this room's an exception. The internet is the second most popular medium, and it's growing 3 times as fast as television. as part of that, social media is built into that number and is growing at 10 times the rate. You almost can't even put a multiple on it because it grew so much. But month to month is about a 10% rate of growth in social media. Time spent with radio, newspaper, and magazine, unfortunately, is declining. And mobile, which I mentioned as one of our products, is the fastest growing medium out there right now. And competition in television is considerable. We compete, Fisher does, and all people in television compete for the audience. We compete for programming, whether or not we create it ourselves or whether or not we buy it. And we compete for advertisers. If you think about this, there are about 115 million households in the United States. There's about 25 million in population, so there's about 3 people per household. I'm rounding a great deal. Cable reaches 60%, approximately 60% of that. Alternative delivery systems, which is predominantly satellite and phone companies, reach about 30%, and over the air is about 15%. And I know the math doesn't add up, and that's because there's duplication between those folks, between satellite and cable. Cable has had some challenge with cord cutting. I've got a great anecdotal story of my son discovering over-the-air television when he didn't want to pay a $125 cable bill as he set up his own place in Los Angeles. And also TV reaches, including cable, but TV reaches in a week 99% of the population. The vast majority of that is through broadcast. 98 of the top 100 programs are broadcast television shows. Television news, broadcast news, is considered the most influential still, and broadcast TV primarily is considered the news source in the United States. So all of those facts build into how do you use media? Well, first of all, you're multitasking. That's how they get to the 11 hours. So you might have the television on, but you're multitasking. So TV, you've got broadcast, you've got cable, you've got satellite, you've got telcos. Radio, you've got broadcast and satellite now. Newspapers, you could say internet too in that. Newspapers, you've got dailies, weeklies, and flyers. Magazines, you've got national, regional, and local. And the internet, increasingly with social and mobile devices, all are delivering media to you as a consumer. In addition, there are other advertising vehicles where the advertising is the content. We all know about outdoor billboards. We know about direct mail. We know about directory services, et cetera. Advertisers can purchase advertising locally. They can purchase it on a network basis. They can purchase it on a national spot basis, on a regional basis, or purchasing multiple select markets through the spot buyers in New York or LA or the big markets, or any combination of these. So you can imagine our life isn't really very simple. It's all about layers of complexity and a matrix, if you will, of how a buy gets put together. And advertising spending is expected to continue to grow. I don't think that surprises anybody in here. It's growing at about 2.5% a year. And clearly some media is doing better than others. Television stations are at a compounded annual growth rate of about 3%. It's about 2.9% a year. Radio is a little bit less than that, around 2.7%. But if you look at the internet, it's growing at 11.4% compound growth rate each year. And that's an amazing statistic when you think about it. And then, you know, you think about, okay, so what does that mean for Fisher and their future and local broadcasters? And, you know, well, how do they even compete? Well, let's not forget, first of all, we've always been in the competitive business, but broadcasters and your local broadcasters have unique strengths, and it's important for us to recognize that our passion is about informing the citizenry. That's why I got in this business. I know there are people in this business just to make money. I know there are people who just want the bottom line to grow. I want those things too, but we have a passion for informing the citizenry. I can tell you in January when the storms hit here, our internet doubled. Our ratings went up by 20%. People turned to our company and broadcasters for coverage on those 3 days of, you know, the storm and what it was doing to their homes. Informing the citizenry is part of what we do, and it's our passion. It's part of our DNA. It's what we love about our business. Obviously, we have a passion for this, but we also have a passion for solving problems We have an interest in getting after and balancing the good in the community with the things that we need to be hounding, if you will. It's not always pretty, but sometimes it has to be done. We also are your neighbors. It's part of our culture to be of this community and of the communities we serve. It's our roots, and so the hyperlocal comes in pretty well into this strategy, because you get to know every neighborhood, every block, every street. It's an amazing way to gather news. And then obviously we have 50, 60, in Fisher's case 100 years of brand recognition, which matters. So the content trends I want to just leave you with to start thinking about, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. You're going to be seeing more and more original programming from more and more sources, meaning you as an individual can create programming, and you can get it out there one way or the other. You can get out there in the internet, it can roll up and get some attention on YouTube, and suddenly it's on your local station, and then it's picked up in the national networks, and we've had it happen to us multiple times. We've seen it happen over and over again. More and more you're going to see local content being produced, content from individuals. There's going to be more diversity reflected in our content because there's more individuals producing that content, which I think is a good thing. News is going to be, and is beginning to be, told as a process, not an end product. That in itself has lots of issues because of the credibility, because there's no reason to cry wolf before you need to, because there's no reason to scare the citizenry until it's proven. But that competitive now information is driving that sharing with you how the sausage is made, as we like to say. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's happening. You're going to see social TV startups explode, and Twitter is going to watch TV with you. We tried that with the Academy Awards, by the way, last year, where we set up a tweet. I know this is all kind of foreign language, but the bottom line is we had almost 1 million tweets during the 3 hours of the Academy Awards here in Seattle, mostly about what they were wearing. You're going to see video on demand grow, which I like. It gives me flexibility. You're going to see personal media continue to grow. Social hyper-connectivity expands. You might get to know your neighbors better than you've ever known them before. I think there's a shift from wired, whatever wired is, to portable, to wireless, to the ultimate wireless. We sit on spectrum. We recognize we have powerful spectrum. I think you're going to be tired of putting holes in your wall and being fixed with your television set. Your set's going to move around with you. You're going to move around. I know my kids watch TV on their iPad. They stream it right now, but eventually, especially with VOD on your iPad, not there yet, but it will be. Pretty cool. Shift from bundled to unbundled. That's a big shift for us. It isn't about a network just providing a program and you buy it within the network, but the unbundled part is, and you're seeing it because they're offering just that show on Hulu or Netflix or whatever, so they're unbundling their content from the channel itself. You're going to see more of that. You're going to see a consolidation of apps coming out. We all have individual apps and products, but in order to get any kind of foothold, you're going to see some consolidation in apps. Advertising trends, you're going to see more and more promotions and more people doing it themselves. You're going to see second screen solutions and multi-platform solutions, and it's going to get more complicated. You're going to need agencies. You're going to need more products to help you sort through how to advertise as a small business person or even as a big business person. And you're going to see the need for measurement, better measurement, the ability to identify what works and what doesn't in a better way than just Nielsen. And you're going to see live sports. You saw it just recently with NFL renewing with all of the networks and the billions of dollars that was paid. And I was having lunch yesterday, and I said to our friendly NFL manager here in town, you do know this is going to bankrupt the networks. Yeah. Yeah, it is. At some point, it will bankrupt the networks. So the alternative, we're not there yet, but ultimately it goes to paid, totally paid off of television, if you will, broadcast, which has all kinds of ramifications for the fan base and what brings and defines a community. Then I'd like to wrap up with technology trends. You're going to see connected TVs growing, meaning all of your televisions are not going to be dumb sets, they're going to be just like your iPhone. Really remarkable smart televisions these days, and you're going to see that being pervasive. TVs with cameras. We used to joke about this, but now it's really going to happen. Your TV set, not just your iPhone, but your TV set's going to have a camera. And you can sit there and talk to your mom in Iowa. And incubator communities will grow. Great for Seattle. We have a lot of incubator communities here. Those are the ones who fund these small startups, angel investors, venture capitalists, et cetera. And we'll have a continued pressure on spectrum in the United States and the compression and the need to efficiently use spectrum in the United States. So those are my trends for the future. I know some of those might not hit home because I'm talking sometimes with industry speak, but it's fascinating to be part of this industry. It is not simple. It's complex. It's challenging. Every day I get up and go, what's next? I truly do. I look at my iPhone and see what's waiting for me before I even work out, before I do anything in the morning, because it changes my day. Calls have to be made, questions have to be asked. It's a really exciting industry, and Fisher and Seattle, in many ways, is in the middle of it. So thanks for having me. I'm going to open it up for questions.
How will you broadcast to my handheld device without either streaming or having a tuner in the device?
Well, you use a broadcast spectrum, and there will either be a small antenna that's wrapped around it, because we don't want a different device, or there will be a dongle, what they call a dongle, a little tiny insert that will adapt your current device. And a company in Israel is making those for us.
As a syndicated columnist, it pains me to say that it's clear that the internet is close to killing newspapers. TV news seems to be doing well right now, but you have to look at what happened to newspapers and be a little frightened. Can you avoid that fate? Or is it inevitable that you'll take the same hit that newspapers have taken?
You know, very different industries. Obviously, newspaper is text-based, and the internet is a video-driven industry right now. And as a result, we're better positioned. I think what will drive the change is going to be more like what happened with news radio. You're going to see an evolution toward continuous news, not just packaged newscasts. That'll be the change. And I think secondarily, the hyperlocal will take on a greater point of concern, as well as one of the big changes, the third piece of that leg, is we don't make money outside of our market. And if you ask your kids where do they get their news, they say Google. Well, I'll straighten you out right now. Their newsroom is an aggregation of our product. They're making their money off of our product. We currently can't watermark all that, but the mainstream news agencies at some point will find a way to make money off of everybody outside of the market who gets the advantage of their product. So there's a lot of different elements to why it's different. And believe me, Fisher is the first company I've worked for that wasn't newspaper-based. I have worked and even defended the Dallas Morning News to the board as to how they needed to evolve and what the challenges were. I feel very well versed in the differences between the two industries, and our job and what's different is to transition and embrace change before we have to, so we're ready when the consumers are ready.
Colleen, I understand that oftentimes communication success and expertise is a legacy that's passed on from generation to generation. Have you found in your own family that there is success in communication?
Oh, yes. I actually, this is a plug. My daughter's in her last semester as a lawyer, or as a law student at University of Seattle University, and so it's a plug. She's going to need a job. But she's a great communicator. The other thing I do want to say, and thank you for asking the question, some of you know, my son Pierce, who when I first accepted at Rotary, I bragged about him going to Pepperdine on an academic scholarship. He just signed a hardcover contract with Random House. He is their science fiction writer through Del Rey for 2013. They bought his book with the full marketing complement, and they bought 2 more. So he will have a science fiction trilogy coming out next year. Check it out. I know we're not supposed to advertise, but it's called Red Rising. And it's going to be good. And they gave him a big advance, so now he's off the dole. Seeing a lot of friends.
Seattle Rotary Online is made possible in part by a grant from First Choice Health, working with the Washington Health Information Collaborative to use technology to bring better health care to patients throughout the Pacific Northwest. First Choice Health.